You know when you're sitting at the Thanksgiving dinner table and you realize that nobody is looking at you anymore when you talk? It's not that they're ignoring you. It's that they're talking over you, as if you were part of the furniture. It took me 6 months to understand what they were planning, but when I did, it was too late. For them. I was 75 years old when I realized my presence had become mere decoration. My name is Richard. I worked 42 years as a civil engineer in Portland, Oregon. I built bridges, literally. I retired in 2018 with a decent pension and a paid-off house in Beaverton. My wife Susan died in 2020. Breast cancer. Too soon to say goodbye properly. After she passed away, my 2 children started showing up more often. Nathan, the older one, manages an investment firm in Seattle. Melissa, the younger one, is a university professor in Eugene. Good children. Or so I thought. Nathan started coming every weekend. He brought his wife, Karen, and their 2 boys. Melissa would call 3 or 4 times a week. She'd ask if I was eating right, if I was taking my medication. Attention I hadn't received in years. At first it warmed my heart. You know how it is. After losing your partner of 50 years, any human presence feels like a gift. I made coffee. I listened to their stories. I played with the grandchildren. But something was strange. They talked amongst themselves as if I wasn't there. Nathan was discussing investments with Karen in my kitchen. Melissa would call and ask Nathan, "Is Dad asleep yet?" while I sat 2 meters away awake, reading the newspaper. I realized it early on. It started small. Nathan would rummage through my documents when he thought I was in the bathroom. Melissa would ask questions about the house, about how much I thought it was worth, about whether I had an updated will. I would answer. I always answered. But I noticed that my answers didn't change the course of their conversations. It was as if I had given my opinion about the weather, polite but irrelevant. In April 2023, Nathan brought a lawyer over for coffee, a young man, grey suit, leather briefcase. He talked about estate planning, about how important it was to protect the family's future while I was still lucid. He was still lucid. That phrase stuck in my head. If you're listening to me now, I want to ask you something. Subscribe to the channel and leave a comment saying where you're listening from. You don't need to tell your whole story. Just tell me where you're from. Because what I'm about to tell you, you'll recognize. Maybe it hasn't happened to you yet, but you've seen it happen to someone. And when I'm finished, you'll understand why I needed you to know. I didn't sign anything that day. I said I'd think about it. Nathan got angry. He didn't yell. He never yells. But I saw that look of someone losing patience with a stubborn child. Karen put her hand on his shoulder. She smiled at me. She said she wasn't in a hurry, that I could think calmly. But 2 days later, Melissa showed up unannounced. She brought forms. She said they were just updates to my health insurance plan. She needed my signature in 3 places. She put yellow sticky notes on the lines. She smiled. She said it was just routine. I read the papers. These weren't health plan updates. It was a medical power of attorney. Broad. It gave her and Nathan decision-making power over any treatment, hospitalization, or procedure. And it had a clause that allowed them to sell my assets if necessary to cover healthcare expenses. I asked why we needed this now. She sighed. That sigh you give when you're explaining something for the 3rd time to someone who doesn't understand. Dad, you're 75 years old. If anything happens, Nathan and I need to be able to help you quickly. It's just a precaution. I didn't sign it. She kept the papers. She said she'd leave them there in case I changed my mind. She kissed my forehead. Then she left. That night I heard Nathan and Melissa talking on the phone. My room is above the living room. The heater makes noise, but not so loud that I can't hear voices coming from downstairs. Melissa had called Nathan. She left the speakerphone on while she made tea in my kitchen. She thought I was asleep. He didn't sign, Nathan. Did you explain it properly? I explained. He read everything. I think he's suspicious. Suspicious of what? We're his children. I know. But you? Know how he gets stubborn. He thinks he's still in charge of everything. Silence. Melissa, we need these documents. If he falls, if he has a stroke, we can't do anything without them. And that house is worth almost 800,000 now. We can't leave this to chance. I know. Try again next week. Take it easy. Tell him it's for his own good. They thought I didn't understand, but I understood everything. Have you ever noticed how people change their tone of voice when they think, "You're not fully recovered"? It's not malice, it's instinct. They speak more slowly, they simplify their sentences, they touch your arm with that exaggerated gentleness as if you were about to break. Nathan started doing that. Every time he came, he brought something. A pot of soup, a book about gardening. Once he brought one of those medical alert devices, those emergency buttons you hang around your neck. "Just for safety, Dad." I thanked them. I put it in the drawer. He was upset that I didn't use it. In May, they organized a dinner. They called it a family reunion. Me, Nathan, Karen, Melissa, and her boyfriend, a guy named Greg who worked in something related to technology. I never quite understood what. We had the meeting at my house. Melissa brought lasagna. Nathan brought wine. Everything was very civilized. After dessert, Nathan brought up the subject. "Dad, we wanted to talk to you about the future." I waited. "We know you value your independence, and we respect that. But we're also concerned. You live alone in a 2-story house. If you fall, if you get sick, it could take hours for someone to notice." Melissa agreed. "We were thinking, maybe it's time for you to consider a change. Nothing drastic, but something safer." I asked them what they had in mind. Nathan took a deep breath. He placed a brochure on the table. It was for a senior living community in Hillsborough. Independent cottages, 24-hour nursing care, social activities, transportation included. It looked like a well-decorated prison. "It's an incredible place, Dad. You'd have your own house, but with support always nearby. And look, there's a carpentry workshop. You've always enjoyed working with wood." I looked at the brochure. Then I looked at Nathan. "And my house?" Silence. Karen stirred her wine. Greg checked his phone. Melissa replied, "We would sell it, and we would use the money to pay for this place. There would be plenty left over. We would invest it for you. We would secure your future." I stopped explaining myself. I just said I would think about it. Nathan was frustrated. I saw it in his eyes. He had rehearsed that conversation. He had arguments prepared. He wanted me to sign that night. But I didn't give him that satisfaction. In the following weeks, they intensified. Not aggressively. It was all very gentle, very concerned. Melissa started sending articles by email, studies on falls in the elderly, statistics on social isolation, articles about senior citizen communities and how they have improved their quality of life. Nathan would show up unannounced. He'd say he was just stopping by to see how you're doing. But he always brought up some other topic. He always came back to the same subject. Once, he arrived with a counter. "Dad, this is Robert. He's a financial planning specialist for retirees. I asked him to take a look at your situation, just to make sure you're financially secure." I didn't ask for that, but Robert was already sitting in my office opening a spreadsheet on his laptop. He was polite, professional. He asked questions about my pension, my investments, my monthly expenses. I answered. I had nothing to hide. After 40 minutes, he closed his laptop. He looked at Nathan, then at me. "Mr. Carter, your financial situation is solid. Very solid, in fact. But I agree with your son. That house is an asset that's sitting idle. And with maintenance, property taxes, insurance, you're spending about $3,000 a month. Just to maintain the property. If you liquidated that and moved into assisted living, you would free up capital and reduce your fixed expenses." I thanked you for the analysis. I haven't changed anything. Nathan paid Robert as he was leaving. I saw it through the car window. They talked in the car for a few minutes. Nathan was gesturing. Robert was nodding. When Nathan went back inside, he was red-faced. "Dad, you're not taking this seriously." I was taking it, more seriously than he realized. "Nathan, I built this house. Your mother chose the colors for the walls. Melissa learned to ride a bike in the driveway. I'm not going to abandon this just because an accountant thinks it's inefficient. He closed his eyes. He took a deep breath. It's not about efficiency, Dad. It's about your safety. I am safe. You think you are, but you don't see what we see. That phrase got to me. And what do you see, Nathan? He hesitated. We see a 75-year-old man living alone, too stubborn to accept help, risking everything because he doesn't want to admit he's getting old. I realized it early on. This wasn't about me. It was about them, about control, about making sure nothing deviated from the script they had already written. June arrived hot. Portland doesn't usually get this hot in June, but that year was different. 38 degrees. I spent most of my time in the garage, working on an oak bookcase I was making for the library. Nathan called every day, always with the E. Same question. Dad, have you thought about what we talked about? Always the same answer. I'm still thinking about it. One afternoon, Melissa showed up with a woman I'd never seen before. She introduced herself as Dr. Linda Hoffman, a geriatrician. Dad, I made an appointment for you, just a checkup. Dr. Hoffman is excellent. She sees many patients in their 70s. I didn't request an appointment, but Dr. Hoffman was already in my office, opening a briefcase. She was kind. She took my blood pressure. She checked my reflexes. She asked some questions about my memory, my routine, and how I had been feeling emotionally since Susan's death. I answered everything. In the end, she smiled. Mr. Carter, you are in excellent shape for your age. Controlled blood pressure, normal reflexes, intact cognition. Melissa seemed relieved, but also a little disappointed. Dr. Hoffman continued, but I would recommend a more complete neurological evaluation, just to have a baseline. It's important to monitor these things as we age. There it was again, that tone, that assumption. I thanked him. I said I would think about it. When Dr. Hoffman left, Melissa stayed. Dad, why are you being so difficult? I'm not being difficult. I just don't want to take tests that I don't need. How do you know you don't need to? Melissa, I worked as an engineer for 40 years. I know when a structure is solid, and I know when someone is trying to convince me that it's collapsing. She crossed her arms. Do you think we're lying? No, I think you're worried. But worry doesn't always see things as they are. She remained silent for a moment. Then he said something that confirmed everything I was thinking. Nathan thinks we should consider other options. What options? Maybe it's time for us to have a conversation with a lawyer about guardianship, just as a precaution. Protection. They wanted to declare me incompetent. I looked at my daughter, the girl I taught to drive. The one whose college education I paid for, the one who cried on my shoulder when her first relationship ended. And there she was, suggesting that I was no longer capable of taking care of myself. I didn't yell. I didn't kick her out of the house. I didn't do anything dramatic. I just said, Melissa, I think you should go. She left. And I knew it was time to stop watching. In the following days, I did something I hadn't done in years. I called my own lawyer. Harold Brennan, 68 years old. We worked together on some contractual matters when I was still active in the company. Solid man, discreet, retired, but still active enough to accept selective cases. I arranged to have lunch with him at a discreet restaurant in Lake Oswego. I told them everything. Harold listened in silence. He jotted down a few points. When I finished, he took off his glasses and wiped them with his tie. Richard, they can't put you under guardianship unless they prove incapacity. And from what? You're telling me you're more lucid than 90% of my 40-year-old clients. I know, but they're going to try. Let them try. You have the right to an independent evaluation. I know 3 neurologists who would do it without bias. If you pass, and it will pass, any request for guardianship will fall apart. I thanked them. But Harold wasn't finished. Now, about your will. When was the last time you updated it? 2019, just before Susan got sick. And how is it divided? 50% for Nathan, 50% for Melissa. The house, the investments, everything divided equally. Harold shook his head. Richard, you need to review this. I'm not saying to disinherit anyone, but you need to create safeguards, trusts, clauses. You need to ensure that if something happens to you, no one can liquidate your assets without supervision. I spent the next 2 weeks restructuring everything. I created an irrevocable trust. I named Harold as the administrator. The house, the investments, everything was transferred to the trust. Nathan and Melissa were still beneficiaries, but now they couldn't touch anything without Harold's approval. And Harold would only release funds for specific, documented, auditable purposes. I also did something else. I updated my medical directive. I named Harold as my healthcare proxy, not Nathan or Melissa. And I left clear instructions. No treatment could be refused or altered without my explicit permission unless I was demonstrably incapacitated by an assessment from 3 independent physicians. When everything was signed, sealed, and registered, I felt lighter. They thought I didn't understand. But I was 3 steps ahead. Nathan found out in July. He had gone to the bank to inquire about my account. He said he was helping his father organize his finances. The manager, who had known me for 20 years, said she couldn't provide any information without my permission. Nathan was furious. He showed up at my house that same afternoon. Dad, what have you done? I was watering the plants in the front. Beautiful day, blue sky. What did I do, Nathan? You changed everything. The bank isn't giving me any information. I called Harold Brennan's office, and the secretary said he's your trustee now. What's going on? I turned off the hose. I carefully rolled it up. I placed it on the holder. I reorganized my financial situation. It's something I should have done years ago. Without consulting us? Nathan, these are my assets. I don't need to consult anyone. He was red-faced, breathing rapidly. You don't trust us? I looked at him. My son, 47 years old, successful, intelligent, and completely blind to what he was doing. Nathan, it's not about trust. It's about responsibility. I am responsible for what I have built, and I will ensure that it is used in the right way. We were going to use it the right way. You were going to put me in a nursing home and sell my property. Silence. It wasn't a nursing home, Dad. It was an assisted living community. I don't need assistance. You think you don't need it, but one day you will. And when that day comes, what will you do? I took a deep breath. I'll deal with it, but I'll deal with it my way, not the way you've already decided for me. Nathan stood still for a moment. Then he said something I'll never forget. You're making a mistake, Dad, and when you realize it, it will be too late. He left. I stood there, in the garden, thinking about that phrase. Too late. He didn't know it, but it was already too late. For him. Melissa showed up 2 days later. She was calmer than Nathan, but I knew she was equally upset. We had coffee in the kitchen. She brought croissants from a French bakery that Susan loved. A kind gesture, calculated. Dad, Nathan told me about the changes. I confirmed it. She sighed. I don't understand. We just want to help you. I know you think you're helping. So why are you pushing? Daz away. I took a sip of coffee. I thought about how to respond. Melissa, do you remember when you were in your senior year of college and wanted to drop everything to follow that boyfriend to Boston? She frowned. I remember. You and Mom said it was crazy. And you got furious. You said we didn't trust you, that you were an adult. I was an adult. It was. But you were also about to make a decision that would harm you, and your mother and I could see that, but you couldn't. She remained silent. The difference, Melissa, is that I let you decide. I gave my opinion, but I didn't force you. I didn't try to control you. In the end, you realized it on your own and stayed in Eugene. You finished college. You met Greg. You built your life. And you think we're trying to control you? I think you're so convinced that you know what's best for me that you've stopped listening to me. She looked at the coffee cup, then at me. Dad, you're getting old. I am. And one day, you won't be. Able to take care of yourself, perhaps. So why not plan it now while you still can? Because planning doesn't mean giving up, and that's what you're asking for. You want me to give up now to make things easier for you later. She took a deep breath. This isn't fair. Melissa, tell me something. When was the last time you asked me what I want? Not what you think I need. What I want. She opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. He couldn't answer, because the truth is, they never asked. During August, they were quiet. No visits, few phone calls. When we spoke, it was superficial, atmosphere, work, nothing deep. I knew they were regrouping. Harold called me in mid-September. Richard, I received a notification. Your son has filed a petition for a capacity assessment. I was expecting it. When is the hearing? October 15th. You'll need a lawyer. I can represent you, but since I'm the trustee, there could be a conflict of interest. I'll recommend someone better. He introduced. Me to Patricia Valdez, 53 years old, specialist in elder law. She had a formidable reputation in contested guardianship cases. We met on a Monday. She reviewed all the documents, all the communications, all the emails Melissa had sent, all the recordings I had made of the conversations. Yes, I had started recording. Oregon is a single consent state. I could record my own conversations without telling anyone. Patricia smiled when she listened to the recordings. Mr. Carter, they don't have an affair at all. Like this? They'll need to prove that you're incapable of managing your finances, your health, your daily decisions, but you've intelligently reorganized your assets. You've created safeguards. You've appointed competent professionals. That's not the behavior of someone incapable. It's the behavior of someone extremely capable. I allowed myself a smile. Furthermore, she continued, I will request an independent neurological and psychological evaluation. You will pass, and when you do, any argument they have will crumble. I did the evaluation 2 weeks later, 4 hours of testing, memory, logical reasoning, decision-making ability, mental health. I passed everything, with scores above average for any age, not just for 75. The neuropsychologist wrote in the report, Mr. Carter demonstrates fully preserved cognitive function, intact judgment, and a clear understanding of his financial and legal circumstances. There is no evidence of cognitive decline, dementia, or any condition that would justify legal intervention. Patricia attached the report to our formal response. Now all we had to do was wait. The hearing took place on a cold Friday in October. Washington County Court, small room, Judge Margaret Thornton presiding. Nathan and Melissa were there with their lawyer, a young man named Derek Chen. He seemed confident. They seemed determined. I was with Patricia. Derek presented the case. He said that Nathan and Melissa were concerned about my safety, that I was living alone, that I had refused medical help, that I had made erratic changes to my assets without consulting my family. He called Nathan as a witness. Nathan talked about how I had become different since Susan's death, more isolated, more stubborn. He said he had tried to help me, but that I rejected any suggestion. Melissa testified next. She cried. She said she was afraid I would fall and no one would find me, that she was afraid I would be financially scammed, that she just wanted to protect me. It was convincing. Until Patricia began the cross-examination. Mrs. Carter Reynolds, you said your father is isolated. How many times have you visited him in the last 6 months? Melissa hesitated. I visit regularly. Regularly means how many times? Maybe once a month? Patricia raised an eyebrow. And how far away do you live? 1 hour. And Mr. Nathan Carter, he lives further away, correct? 3 hours? Nathan confirmed. So actually, Patricia continued, it's not that Mr. Richard Carter is isolated. It's that you don't visit him often enough. Derek Chen protested. The judge ordered it to continue. Patricia called Harold Brennan. Harold testified about the changes in ownership. He explained that everything was done with clarity, purpose, and a full understanding of the legal implications. Then Patricia called me. I testified for 30 minutes. I explained my routine, my state of health, my finances. Why? I made the changes I made. The judge asked me direct questions. "Mr. Carter, do you understand what's happening here today?" "I understand, Your Excellency. My children want the court to declare me incompetent so that they can control my decisions." "And you think they're wrong?" "I think they are worried, but worry is not the same as need." She read the neuropsychological report. She read Harold's statements. She read everything. Then she looked at Nathan and Melissa. Petition denied. Derek. Chen tried to argue. The judge cut him off. "There is no evidence of incapacity. Mr. Carter is lucid, organized, and fully capable of managing his life. This hearing is adjourned." Nathan and Melissa were shocked. I left the courthouse with Patricia. They tried to catch up with me in the hallway. I didn't stop. Things got very quiet after that. Nathan stopped calling. Melissa sent short messages now and then. "Happy birthday. Merry Christmas." Nothing more. I didn't insist. I had learned that some distance is necessary. But in March 2024, Nathan called me. He was different. His voice was low, almost humble. "Dad, I need to talk to you." We met at a cafe in Portland. He was thinner, dark circles under his eyes. "What happened, Nathan?" He took a deep breath. "I did something stupid." He told me. For the past 2 years, he had been moving funds from his clients to cover personal losses, bad investments, gambling debts, things I never imagined my son would do. Now, the firm was conducting an audit. They had discovered the discrepancies. Nathan was going to be indicted. "I need $200,000, Dad, to return what I took. If I do it before the audit closes, maybe I can get a deal. Avoid prison." I remained silent. "Dad, please. I know I've been terrible to you. I know you don't owe me anything. But I'm your son." He was crying. For the first time in years, my son was vulnerable in front of me. And I felt nothing. Not anger, not satisfaction, just a profound emptiness. "Nathan, you tried to take away my home, my dignity, my autonomy, because you thought I wasn't capable. But you, at half my age, made choices that put you where you are now." He lowered his head. "I know. And now you want me to save you." He didn't answer. I got up. "Nathan, I'm not going to give you that money." "Good. Let me finish. I'm not going to give it to you because giving it would be taking away the only thing that can truly save you, the consequence. I paid for my coffee." I looked at him one last time. "You will face the consequences of what you created, and perhaps when it's all over, you will understand what I tried to teach you." I left. Nathan was indicted 3 weeks later. He made a deal. 2 years in prison. Full restitution. Melissa called me, furious. She said I was cruel, that I could have helped and chose not to. I told her the same thing I told Nathan. Not every warning is a favor. She hung up. We don't talk anymore. In June 2024, I received a call from Karen, Nathan's wife. She was crying. "Richard, I know you and Nathan aren't speaking, but I need to tell you something." She told me that Nathan was doing well in prison. He had started therapy. He was participating in educational programs. For the first time in years, he was confronting his choices. He asked me to tell you something. I waited. He said, "Tell my father he was right." I didn't reply. I just thanked them for the call. Karen continued, "Richard, I know. Nathan hurt you, but I wanted you to know he's changing for real." I believed, but change doesn't erase what has been done. Melissa showed up at my door in August. She was different, less defensive, more tired. "Dad, can we talk?" We made coffee. We sat in the living room. She started slowly. "I've spent the last few months thinking about everything, about what we did, about what you said. I heard. You were right. We weren't listening to you. We thought that knowing what was best was the Same as listening to what you wanted. She looked at her own hands. I went to Penn State in July, a lecture on aging and autonomy. The speaker talked about how families often infantilize the elderly, how they take decisions away from them out of love. And I recognized everything. I recognized ourselves. Tears were streaming down her face. I'm sorry, Dad. I didn't say everything is fine, because it wasn't. But I said, I accept your apology. She asked if we could rebuild. I said only, time would tell. She understood. Today, in January 2026, I still live in my house. I still work in the garage. I still drink coffee alone in the morning. Nathan gets out of prison in April. He wrote me a few letters. He doesn't ask for anything. He just tells me how he's doing, what he's learned, who he wants to be when he gets out. I'm reading it. I haven't replied yet, but I'm reading it. Melissa visits me once a month, not to take care of me, to talk. She's learned to ask instead of assuming. Last week she brought her nephews. They played in the garden while she and I chatted on the porch. Dad, can I ask you something? I confirmed it. You've never been angry? Like really angry about what we tried to do? I thought. Melissa, anger would have meant that I expected something different from you, but I knew what was coming. I realized it early on. She was quiet for a moment. How could you stand it? Just standing there, watching everything without reacting. Because reacting wouldn't change you. It would only change me. And I wasn't willing to become bitter just to prove a point. She rested her head on my shoulder, just like she used to do when she was little. You are stronger than I imagined. I smiled. It's not about strength, Melissa. It's simply about understanding that not every battle needs to be fought. Some battles you win simply by not losing. A few weeks ago, I received a call from Derek Chen, the lawyer who represented Nathan and Melissa at the conservatorship hearing. He was calling to apologize. Mr. Carter, I shouldn't have taken that case. I was young, I thought I was helping a family, but I reviewed the documents, I reviewed the recordings, and I realized I was on the wrong side. I asked him why he was telling me this, because I started specializing in elder law. And now I see how many cases like yours exist, well-intentioned children who end up doing more harm than good. And I wanted you to know that what you did, defending yourself, maintaining your autonomy, was extraordinary. Most people can't do that. Saying thank you would be awkward, so I just said, I hope you use this to help other people. He said he would go. Harold visited me last week. He brought the trust's annual documents for review. Everything was in order. Stable investments, appreciated property value, solid financial health. Richard, you know you can dissolve the trust at any time, right? You can regain direct control of everything. I knew. But I'm not going. Why? Because having a system doesn't mean I don't trust myself. It means I respect the complexity of life. Anyone could have a stroke tomorrow. Anyone could become disabled. And when that happens, I want things to be structured so they work without drama. Harold smiled. You think like an engineer. I always thought so. He kept the documents. Before leaving, he said something that stuck with me. Richard, you taught your children a lesson that most people never learn. Respect isn't automatic, not even within a family. Have you ever had that moment when you realize you don't need to prove anything anymore? I had. It was a December morning. Gray sky, light rain. I was in the garage, sanding a table I was making to donate, and I realized I was at peace. Not because everything has been resolved. Nathan is still in prison. Melissa and I are still rebuilding. There are scars that won't disappear. But I was at peace because I maintained my dignity. They tried to take that away from me, not out of malice, out of fear. Fear of losing me, fear of not being in control when I needed to be. But fear does not justify control, and I understood that early enough to act. If you're listening to me and recognize this story, if you've ever felt that the people around you stopped listening to you, stopped considering you as a whole person, I want you to know one thing. You don't need to shout to be heard. You don't need to explain yourself to be respected. You just need to know who you are And stay true to that, even when, especially when, the people you love try to convince you otherwise. Physical presence without emotional connection is shared loneliness, and you deserve better than that. I chose more than that. And today, at 75 years old, living in my house, working in my garage, living on my own terms, I can say it was worth every second of silence. Because in the end, those who realize it early don't need to rush. You just need to wait. If this story touched you, if you recognize something in it, leave a like on this video. Subscribe to the channel, because this isn't about numbers, it's about finding people who understand, people who have already been through this, or who know that one day they will. And when you and I share these stories, we create something important. We create understanding. And understanding, in the end, is all that really matters.